Welcome to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. Today, we're going to be diving deep into the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
This chapter is often called Divya Gyan, or divine knowledge.
And if you're on a journey of self-discovery, or even if you're just curious about ancient wisdom and how it's relevant even today,
Stick with us.
this deep dive is going to unpack some big concepts about action knowledge and even liberation.
Yeah. By the end, you'll have some fresh perspectives on how to navigate life and all its complexities.
With a little bit more grace.
And a lot more understanding.
Make sure you stay tuned to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel all the way to the end, because we have a lot of valuable insights coming your way.
The Bhagavad Gita was composed centuries ago, but it still speaks to the core of human experience. It's really fascinating.
It really is. And this fourth chapter, it really digs deep into the source of true knowledge, how it's passed down, and what it means to really live a life guided by that wisdom. So let's jump right in. The chapter starts with Lord Krishna revealing something interesting to Arjuna. He says that the science of yoga isn't something he came up with.
Right.
It's something he's taught before.
He says he first taught it to Vivasvan, the sun god himself.
And this is where the idea of lineage comes in.
Vivasvan taught Manu, the father of mankind.
Right.
And then Manu passed it down to Ikshvaku.
So it created this chain of disciplic succession.
It really shows how important it is to have a direct link back to the source of the knowledge, like an unbroken chain.
It's like a sacred thread.
Yeah.
That connects us back to the origin of this wisdom.
Absolutely.
But here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Krishna mentions that this chain, this sacred thread, it was broken at some point. This divine knowledge, it was lost.
Yeah.
And because of that, he had to revive it specifically for Arjuna.
This idea of lost knowledge, it's a powerful one. It kind of makes you think about how knowledge works in cycles.
Right.
Even divine wisdom can be forgotten over time. Sometimes it takes divine intervention to bring it back to humanity.
Makes you wonder what else might be lost out there, what other ancient wisdom is waiting to be rediscovered. But it also raises a really logical question. If Krishna taught Vivasvan before Krishna himself was even born, how's that even possible? And thankfully, Arjuna asks that very question.
Krishna's answer takes us right to the heart of reincarnation, which is a core concept in Hinduism and other spiritual traditions too. He says that both he and Arjuna have been born countless times, but Arjuna can't remember them all because he's limited by his human nature.
It really highlights that difference between the divine and the human experience.
Yeah. Krishna, as a divine being, is fully aware of his eternal existence.
Right.
But Arjuna can only remember so much.
That makes me wonder what wisdom we might be carrying within us from those past lives. It's a crazy thought, isn't it? But then another question comes up. If Krishna is this divine being, why would he even need to be reborn? Why would he take on a physical form at all?
Krishna says that he takes on these divine incarnations or avatars whenever religion is in decline and things are becoming less righteous.
Right.
It's like a cosmic balancing act.
Right.
He appears to protect those who are good and destroy those who aren't to make sure righteousness continues.
So it's not random. It's a deliberate intervention to restore harmony and balance good and evil.
That's right.
If you're finding these insights interesting, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because there's much more to come. This is the Great Indian AI Podcast channel, and we're dedicated to bringing you deep dives into topics that matter.
This brings us to a really central theme of this chapter and of the whole Bhagavad Gita, Karma Yoga. Krishna tells Arjuna to do his duty, but not to be attached to the outcome. Focus on the action itself, rather than what might happen because of it.
That's a lot easier said than done, don't you think?
It is.
We're so used to focusing on what we achieve, to striving for results and measuring our worth by what we get out of things.
It's true.
But Krishna is suggesting that true freedom comes from letting go of the need to control everything and from wanting those rewards all the time.
And what's great is that Krishna doesn't just tell Arjuna to do this.
Right.
He actually embodies it. He's Arjuna's charioteer out of a sense of duty and love.
Right.
He doesn't do it because he wants to gain something from it. Yeah. He's a living, breathing example of what Karma Yoga looks like.
He's walking the talk, which makes his message so much more powerful.
Yeah.
And this is where the idea of surrender comes in, isn't it? It's about surrendering to a higher power, to a path that might not always make sense logically, but that resonates deeply with our souls.
Surrender in this case doesn't mean you're weak or giving up. It means letting go of your ego's need to be in charge and instead aligning yourself with the will of the divine. This surrender opens us up to a higher level of knowledge, the kind of knowledge that frees us from the cycle of life and death.
That cycle of birth and death,
Yeah.
that continuous loop of suffering and attachment.
Right.
So many spiritual traditions deal with this, and this chapter offers a powerful perspective on how to break free from it.
And that freedom, that liberation,
Yeah.
it's really what the Bhagavad Gita is all about. It's this journey of self-discovery, of peeling back layers to reveal our true nature.
Now, Krishna goes into different types of sacrifices that people make on this journey of self-realization.
He talks about sacrifices made by yogis.
Right.
And by people who've mastered their senses and their minds. And what's really interesting is that these sacrifices aren't just external rituals.
Yeah.
It's an internal process, a process of purification and surrender.
It's not about giving up your possessions, but it's about giving up the hold those things have on you.
Yes, exactly.
It's about shifting our focus from the outside world to our inner world
Right.
and finding happiness from within rather than seeking it in things.
That's an important point. It's not about giving up your possessions, but it's about giving up the hold those things have on you. It's about shifting our focus from the outside world to our inner world and finding happiness from within rather than seeking it in things.
That's a big shift, and it makes me wonder, what are some of the specific types of sacrifices that Krishna talks about, and how do they actually help us on this path?
Well, he starts by talking about the reasons behind why people do things. He says that people in this world are often driven by this desire for success in activities that'll bring them material rewards. And to achieve these goals, they might worship demigods or other powerful beings to get their favor and blessings.
So it's like a spiritual transaction.
Right.
I'll do this for you if you do this for me. But where does that actually lead?
Krishna points out that this type of worship might get you what you want for a little while, but it won't lead to lasting satisfaction. It keeps us stuck in this cycle of wanting and being reborn, always chasing something that ultimately doesn't last. We keep looking for fulfillment outside ourselves without realizing that true happiness is actually found within.
It's like that saying, wherever you go, there you are. You can't escape yourself no matter how many achievements you rack up. True fulfillment comes from within.
Exactly. True happiness, true liberation comes from aligning ourselves with the divine, with the source of all existence. And that takes a deep understanding of ourselves and how action works. Krishna breaks action down into 3 categories. There's action in action and forbidden action.
Okay.
This framework helps us figure out the right thing to do in any situation.
That sounds super helpful.
And it is.
Especially today where we're constantly bombarded with choices and pulled in so many directions.
Yeah, it gives you clarity. It's like a compass to guide you. So action in this framework means stuff you do that's in line with your duty and guided by the scriptures.
So it's about understanding your dharma,
Yes.
your unique purpose in life, and acting in a way that fits that purpose.
Exactly. Now, inaction doesn't mean sitting around doing nothing. It refers to getting involved in things that don't help you grow spiritually. Think of stuff like indulging in too much pleasure or neglecting your responsibilities.
So it's about being aware of what you're doing
Right.
and making sure it's helping you reach the goal of self-realization.
Right. And then there's forbidden actions. Those are the things that are clearly off limits according to the scriptures, because they cause bad karma and hold you back from growing spiritually. These usually come from not understanding who you really are and how everything's connected.
So it's not just about avoiding actions that seem bad, but about making sure our intentions are pure. Our actions should come from love, compassion, and a desire to help others.
Yeah, and Krishna says that true knowledge, the knowledge of our divine nature and how we're all connected to the Supreme Being, naturally leads us to do the right thing.
So when we truly get who we are, our actions naturally fall in line with dharma.
Exactly.
It's like the knowledge itself becomes the guide. It lights the way and leads us to liberation. But it sounds like a tricky balancing act. This whole idea of fulfilling our duties in the world while also detaching ourselves from what we get out of it and making sure we avoid things that pull us away from our true nature. How do we even begin to figure this all out? Where do we even start?
Well, Krishna gives us a roadmap. He says it's important to seek knowledge from a spiritual master.
The guru.
Yeah, a guru, someone who is self-realized. He says you can learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, asking questions with humility, and serving them.
So the role of the guru, the teacher, is super important on this path.
It is.
But why is that? Why can't we just read the scriptures and figure things out on our own?
The scriptures are like a map,
Okay.
but you still need a guide to help you navigate. The person who's self-realized, who has actually experienced the truth firsthand, is the only one who can truly give you that knowledge.
Okay.
Think of it like this. You could read every book about swimming, but you wouldn't actually know how to swim until you got in the water with an instructor.
That makes perfect sense. And this brings us back to the idea of the lineage of teachers we talked about earlier. It seems like that connection, that direct line from teacher to student, is really important for understanding things at this deeper level.
It is. It's like a golden thread connecting us back to the original source of knowledge. It makes sure the knowledge stays pure and real. It's a lineage that goes way back, carrying wisdom from ancient times.
It's amazing how this chapter brings together so many different ideas. We have divine knowledge passed down through teachers, the need for a guru to guide us, and this profound concept of karma yoga. But how do we actually use all of this? How do we live in the world, do our jobs, and still reach that state of liberation?
Krishna explains that true knowledge makes you realize that every living being is a part of him.
Mhm.
We're all connected and part of the same fabric of existence.
Right.
When you understand that, it helps you get beyond this idea that you're separate and that you're just your ego.
Right.
It allows you to act selflessly without needing something in return.
So it's about shifting our perspective from me to we.
Exactly.
Recognizing that we're all interconnected and acting in a way that aligns with the divine.
Exactly. It's about seeing yourself as part of something bigger, acting for the good of everyone, not just yourself.
Now, if we're all part of Krishna, why do we all experience life so differently? Why do some people seem to suffer more than others? This is a question that has puzzled people for centuries.
Krishna explains that even though he created this whole system, the system with social divisions and the three modes of material nature, he isn't actually bound by it.
Right.
He's the one who doesn't do anything. He's unchanging and unaffected by the actions of the material world.
So it's like he wrote the play, but he's not acting in it.
Right.
He created the stage, but he doesn't get caught up in all the drama.
Yes.
He sets the scene, but our individual experiences depend on what we do and the choices we make within this cosmic play.
That's a great way to put it.
It helps us understand that our actions do have consequences. But Krishna, as the ultimate source, remains detached and unmoved. And this understanding is so important for achieving liberation. Krishna emphasizes that no work affects him,
Right.
that he doesn't want anything from his actions. He encourages Arjuna and all of us to develop that same detachment,
Yes.
to understand that true freedom comes from letting go of our need to be attached to the results of what we do.
He uses the analogy of fire to explain this point.
Okay.
He compares the fire of knowledge to a fire that's burning wood.
Right.
Just as that fire burns the wood to ashes, the fire of transcendental knowledge burns away all the reactions to our actions in the material world, freeing us from this cycle of karma.
That's a powerful image. It shows how transformative true knowledge really is. It's like a cleansing process, a burning away of everything that's holding us back.
And this knowledge, this understanding is the ultimate goal of all mystical traditions. It's what you achieve through spiritual practice and self-realization. It's something to be cultivated and treasured. It's a priceless treasure, the key to unlocking your true potential and finding lasting peace and happiness.
And this is just the beginning.
It is.
We've only just scratched the surface of this profound chapter.
There's so much more. Welcome back to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. We're continuing our exploration of the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita.
We're going to be unraveling all the complexities of action and inaction on the path to liberation.
It's a topic that can be really confusing even for the smartest people out there.
It's true. Even Krishna says it's not always easy to figure out what true action really is. The lines can get blurry.
Right.
Sometimes what looks like action is actually inaction and the other way around.
Exactly. That's why having a self-realized guru, a teacher, is so important. They can help us see through the illusions and understand what our actions really mean.
So it's not as simple as just doing good things right. There's a deeper understanding needed here. It's about making our actions match up with our true nature and the will of the divine. It's about acting selflessly without getting hung up on the results.
That's a key point. It's about shifting your focus
Yeah.
from what's in it for me to how can I serve.
Right.
This is the heart of karma yoga.
Krishna also talks about forbidden actions. What are those exactly, and why are they so bad for our spiritual progress?
Forbidden actions are the ones that break the rules of dharma, the ones that hurt ourselves or others. They trap us in this cycle of karma and rebirth. These actions often come from ignorance, from not understanding who we truly are and how everything is connected.
So it sounds like it's not just about avoiding doing bad things, but also about cleaning up our intentions, making sure our actions come from love, compassion, and wanting to help others. It's about recognizing that spark of the divine in ourselves and in everyone else.
Right, exactly. And Krishna emphasizes that true knowledge, the knowledge of our divine nature and how we're all connected to the Supreme, naturally leads us to do the right thing. When we get who we really are, our actions just line up with Dharma. It happens naturally.
It's like the knowledge itself lights up the path and guides us towards liberation.
Exactly. And that's why Krishna really stresses how important it is to get guidance from a self-realized spiritual master.
Right.
A guru can help us figure out what's right and what's wrong. They can guide us on this tricky path to self-realization.
Krishna gives a really good example to illustrate this point. He talks about how people who achieved liberation in the past did it by acting with this understanding. They reached liberation by doing their duties with divine consciousness.
It's inspiring to know that this path is possible for us, that liberation is possible for anyone who really wants it. We have examples of those who walked this path before us and reached that ultimate goal. Their lives show how powerful divine knowledge can be.
It's like they left footprints in the sand showing us the way. And Krishna makes a really interesting statement when he says that even intelligent people get confused when they try to figure out what's action and what's inaction.
That's because this concept is really subtle. It's often paradoxical. It's not always black and white. What looks like action might actually be inaction and vice versa.
And this is where the title of the chapter, Divine Knowledge, really becomes clear. This stuff goes deep. We're talking about seeing the world in a completely different way. It goes beyond what we can understand with our normal senses and our intellect.
It's a deep exploration of what reality really is. Krishna is guiding us towards a shift in consciousness, a way of seeing that goes beyond the duality of our everyday experiences.
And this shift in how we see things, this understanding of who we really are, that's what ultimately frees us from this cycle of life and death.
Absolutely. It's the key to unlocking lasting peace, happiness, and fulfillment.
But how do we actually make this shift? How do we go from confusion to clarity, from being attached to being liberated?
Krishna gives us a roadmap. He talks about different types of sacrifices, the importance of controlling our senses and minds, and surrendering to the will of the divine.
So it's not just something that happens passively. It takes effort, dedication, a willingness to step outside of our comfort zones.
It's a journey of discovering yourself, a process of becoming pure and transformed.
And the rewards, it seems, are huge. Krishna uses a beautiful analogy. He compares transcendental knowledge to a boat that can carry us across a sea of suffering.
Wow.
It's like we're being given a lifeline, a way to escape the pain of the material world and reach a place of peace and happiness that never ends.
That's such a powerful image. It gives this sense of hope and liberation that comes with true knowledge. And this knowledge, this liberation is available to everyone. It doesn't matter what you've done in the past or what your situation is right now.
That's incredibly reassuring. It means it doesn't matter how far off track we've gotten. There's always a way back to our true selves.
Yeah.
But how does someone who's made mistakes, who's been caught up in negative patterns, how do they find their way back?
Krishna talks about this directly. He says that even if someone is considered the worst sinner of all, they can still get across that ocean of suffering by taking shelter in transcendental knowledge. It's a message of hope and compassion.
Yeah.
It shows the incredible power of divine knowledge and how it welcomes everyone.
That's a beautiful message. No one is beyond saving. No one is shut out from the possibility of liberation.
Exactly. The path is lit by the light of divine knowledge.
Right.
The knowledge that burns away the darkness of not knowing and frees us from the chains of our own limitations.
We often limit ourselves by holding on too tightly to the results of our actions, always looking for rewards and recognition for what we do. Krishna points out that this attachment is a big obstacle on the path to liberation.
Yeah.
It's like trying to hold on to sand. The harder we grip, the more slips through our fingers.
Those who are free from attachment, who act selflessly and surrender to the divine, they're not bound by their actions. They experience this level of freedom and fulfillment that goes beyond the ups and downs of the material world.
So it's about changing our focus from what do I get out of this to how can I be of service. It's about aligning our actions with something bigger, a purpose that goes beyond our own wants and ambitions.
And that's where the concept of karma yoga really shines. It's not about stopping all action altogether. It's about transforming our actions into selfless service, into offerings to the divine.
And Krishna himself is the ultimate example of karma yoga. He works tirelessly to help everyone without wanting anything in return. His actions come from pure love and compassion, a boundless desire to uplift and liberate everyone. It's a level of selflessness that's hard to even grasp.
He's the perfect role model.
Yeah.
He embodies selfless action and divine consciousness. And his teachings in the Bhagavad Gita give us a clear path to follow so we can develop those same qualities within ourselves.
It's a path that leads to true freedom, to lasting peace, to realizing our full divine potential. It's a path that's open to every single one of us.
And we're just getting started.
Welcome back to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel. As we're wrapping up our deep dive into the 4th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Divya Gyan, Divine Knowledge,
Right.
we're going to be exploring how we can actually put this wisdom into practice and move toward liberation.
Yeah.
It's one thing to understand all these concepts, but how do we actually live them?
That's a great question, and Krishna addresses it in this chapter. He talks about all these different kinds of sacrifices that people make on the path to self-realization. It's like he's giving us a practical guide, a toolbox we can use to refine our actions and purify our intentions.
He starts off by describing how some yogis worship the demigods by making different sacrifices, while others offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. It seems like there are all these different approaches to different paths people can take.
Absolutely, and Krishna acknowledges them all. He doesn't judge any of them. He's showing us how diverse spiritual practices can be and emphasizing that the ultimate goal is connecting with the divine,
Right.
regardless of how you get there.
So it's not about finding the right path. It's about finding what resonates with you, what feels real and authentic to your own journey.
Exactly, and he encourages us to approach our chosen path with sincerity and devotion, to offer our actions as a form of worship, whether we're meditating, chanting mantras, or helping others.
Right.
It's all about putting awareness and intention into everything we do.
He then describes this type of sacrifice that involves offering your senses into the fire of a controlled mind. That one sounds a bit intense. What does that even mean?
It's a metaphor for controlling your senses, which is a huge part of spiritual practice in lots of traditions. The idea is to pull your attention away from the outside world, from all the stuff that bombards our senses all the time,
Right.
and instead turn your focus inward.
Okay.
Towards the divine within. It's not about completely shutting down your senses.
Yeah.
It's about mastering them, using them for something higher.
So it's about realizing that our senses can either distract us or they can help us become more aware.
Right.
We have to choose to use them wisely.
Exactly. And Krishna describes how people who are interested in self-realization, they offer all their senses and their life force as offerings into this fire of a controlled mind. It's like they're completely surrendering themselves completely to the divine.
That makes me think of detachment. This idea of letting go of the things we're attached to.
Exactly. It's about refining our desires and changing those attachments into a longing for union with the divine. And when we surrender, when we let go, that's when we find true freedom.
Now, Krishna also talks about people who practice breath control and who limit how much they eat and offer those actions as sacrifices. What's the significance of these practices? How do they fit into this bigger picture of self-realization?
These practices help us detach from the material world and find inner peace.
Okay.
By controlling your breath, you can calm your mind and tap into deeper levels of awareness.
Right.
And by eating in moderation, you can purify your body and depend less on external things.
Okay.
It's about creating a sense of harmony and balance within yourself, both physically and mentally.
It's interesting how these simple practices can have such a big impact on our inner state.
They do. This inner harmony creates a space for the divine to show up, for real knowledge to dawn. And Krishna says that everyone who engages in these types of sacrifices, they get cleansed of all those negative karmic reactions, and they reach the supreme eternal atmosphere.
So it's not just about following rules or going through rituals without thinking.
No.
It's about understanding the deeper meaning behind these practices.
Yeah.
About making our actions match up with our understanding of the divine.
Exactly. It's about bringing awareness, devotion, and a longing for union with the Supreme into our lives. And Krishna says this understanding, this knowledge is the most amazing and pure thing in the world. He compares it to a ripe fruit of all mysticism, the ultimate goal of spiritual practice and self-realization.
And those who have achieved this knowledge, he says they enjoy the self within themselves. They experience such deep inner peace and fulfillment, a state of complete oneness with the divine.
Right. And Krishna wraps up the chapter with a really powerful image. He compares transcendental knowledge to a blazing fire that burns away all reactions to stuff we do in the material world.
Right.
Just like fire consumes everything and leaves only ashes behind,
Yeah.
the fire of knowledge burns away all our karmic impurities and frees us from the material world.
This deep dive has been an amazing exploration of action, knowledge, and liberation. It's given us so much to think about, to reflect on, to use in our own lives.
Oh.
It reminds us that the path to enlightenment is always there for us. We have the power to change ourselves and reach our full divine potential. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the Bhagavad Gita. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe to the Great Indian AI Podcast channel for more insightful deep dives. Until next time.